They say God abandoned us in 1347. I don't know if that's true, but I know this. For 5 years, I watched half of Europe die, not in battles, not from famine, not from old age, from boils the size of apples that turned your skin black and made you rot while you were still breathing. From fever so intense you begged for death, from a disease that killed entire families in 3 days, entire villages in a week, entire cities in a month. My name is Brother Thomas. I was 24 years old when the pestilence came, a Benedictine monk, a scribe, a healer at the monastery of Saint Benedict in Florence. I thought my vows would protect me. I thought God would spare those who served him. I was wrong. I watched 37 brothers die in our monastery. I closed their eyes. I blessed their bodies. I buried them in pits we dug in the garden because the graveyards were full. And somehow, impossibly, I lived. Not because I was holier, not because I prayed harder, because I broke every rule we were taught. I abandoned the sick when I should have stayed. I fled when I should have served. I chose survival over salvation. And that choice haunts me more than any plague ever could. This is the story of the pestilence, the story of the death that turned the world black. The story of 5 years when humanity learned that prayer doesn't stop disease, that faith doesn't prevent death, that sometimes God is silent, and the only thing that saves you is running. 1347, before the death. Florence was magnificent, stone towers rising into the sky, the Duomo under construction, its dome reaching toward heaven, markets filled with silk from the east, spices from Arabia, gold from Africa. We were the center of the world, banking, art, philosophy, trade. The Medici were rising to power. Dante had written his Divine Comedy just decades before. We believed we were living in a new golden age. I had been a monk for 6 years, entered the monastery at 18 after my father died. My mother couldn't feed all of us. I had 3 younger sisters, so I took vows: poverty, chastity, obedience, and healing. We ran an infirmary, treated the poor, set broken bones, stitched wounds, mixed herbs into remedies. We couldn't cure much. Medieval medicine was limited, but we tried. We believed that serving the sick was serving God, that suffering was holy, that death was just the doorway to eternal life. Those beliefs killed most of us. In October 1347, ships arrived in Sicily from the east, from the Crimea, from Constantinople, from trading ports along the Silk Road. The sailors were sick, covered in black swellings, vomiting blood, delirious with fever. Most were already dead. The ones still alive were dying. The port authorities tried to quarantine them, turn the ships away. But it was too late. The rats had already come ashore. The fleas had already jumped. The death had already begun. January 1348. The death arrives in Florence. We heard rumors first. Travelers from the coast, merchants from Pisa, refugees from smaller towns. They spoke of a pestilence, a disease that killed in days, that spread like wildfire through households, that left streets full of corpses with no one alive to bury them. Exaggeration, our abbot said. Panic. The people are always prone to hysteria. But then we saw our first case, a woman, maybe 30 years old, brought to our infirmary by her husband. She was burning with fever, shaking, delirious, and on her neck, under her jaw, there were swellings, lumps, dark purple, almost black, the size of eggs, buboes. We didn't know that word yet. We would learn it soon enough. I helped the older monks undress her, tried to cool the fever with wet cloths. When I touched one of the swellings, she screamed. The pain was unimaginable. We gave her poppy milk for the pain, prayed over her, made poultices of herbs. She died that night, 12 hours after arriving. Her husband came the next morning to collect the body. He had the fever too, and the swellings on his neck. He died 3 days later. Their 3 children died the day after that. An entire family, gone in less than a week. And that was just the beginning. By March, the death owned Florence. Every day, more cases. 10, 20, 50, 100. People collapsing in the streets, entire households going silent, bodies piling up because there weren't enough grave diggers. The city hired men to collect the dead, paid them enormous sums. No one wanted the job. They would walk through the streets with carts, calling, "Bring out your dead," and doors would open. Bodies would be thrown into the carts, stacked like firewood. No prayers, no ceremony, no dignity, just disposal. By April, the monasteries began to fall. We had always been places of healing, places of refuge, but now we were places of death. Sick people came to our doors in crowds, some crawling, some carried by desperate family members, some already dead. We tried to treat them. We prayed over them. We bled them. We applied poultices. We burned incense. Nothing worked. The death moved faster than our prayers. One morning, Brother Matteo collapsed while preparing bread. Black swellings covered his armpits and groin. He died before sunset. Brother Luca lasted 2 days. Brother Anselm lasted 1. Our abbot told us this was a test from God. "Stand firm," he said. "Do not abandon your duties. Fear is the weapon of the devil, but fear is also the weapon of nature." And it won. One by one, monks disappeared. Some ran, some hid, some barricaded themselves in their cells and prayed until they starved. Within a month, our monastery was almost empty, dead or gone. I stayed, not because I was brave, because I didn't know where else to go. Florence was collapsing, shops abandoned, streets empty, markets silent. Dogs ran wild, cats hunted in the alleys. Corpses lay in front of houses with crosses painted on the doors. The bells of the city rang constantly, not for prayer, but to mark the dead. Every morning I woke expecting to feel the fever, expecting to see the swellings, expecting it to be my last day. And every morning I lived. Survival became a shame, a question. Why me? Why not the people I loved? One morning I found a note on my door. "Leave. The city is doomed." It wasn't signed. That was the day I fled. I packed nothing. Just my cloak, a loaf of bread, and the small wooden cross my mother gave me. Florence's gates were unguarded. The guards had fled days before. Outside the walls, the countryside was no safer. Fields abandoned, farmhouses silent. Sometimes I saw smoke rising from distant villages. Sometimes I saw nothing at all. On the second night, I reached a small village, or what was left of it. Every house was open, tables set for meals that had never been eaten, chairs overturned, toys on the floor. Silence. I slept in a barn. In the morning, I saw the bodies behind the church. Dozens, wrapped in blankets, some not wrapped at all. A shallow pit half filled. Someone had tried to bury them. Someone had failed. I kept walking. For weeks, I wandered from village to village. Some villages were untouched, people healthy but terrified, refusing to let travelers enter. Some villages were half dead, families digging graves for their neighbors. Some were entirely gone, Houses open like broken mouths. Once in the forest, I saw a man digging a grave alone. Inside, it was a child. He didn't look up when I approached. He just said, "Don't come closer. I don't want you to die too." I left him in his grief. The world was ending slowly, painfully, without fire or war. Just absence. Eventually, I reached a monastery in the hills of Umbria. Remote, small. Only 12 brothers lived there. They let me in, fed me, gave me a cell, let me rest. For the first time in months, I felt safe, but safety had become a lie. 3 days after I arrived, the first brother fell ill. Then another. Then another. The death had found them too. One night, the abbot asked me into his chamber. He was old, thin, hands trembling. He said, "You have seen more of this pestilence than any man alive. Tell me, what must we do?" I wanted to say, pray, have faith, trust God. But all I could say was, run. He closed his eyes. We cannot abandon our duties. Duties do not matter if you are dead, I said. He didn't answer. 2 days later, he was gone. Another pit dug, another cross placed in the soil, and I fled again. I no longer believed God was testing us. Tests have lessons. This had none. This was nature, indifferent, unstoppable, hungry. By winter of 1349, the death had eaten a third of all Europe. Cities emptied, kingdoms shaken, fields left to rot because there were no peasants left to harvest them. And I was alive, still walking, still running, still ashamed. I reached Paris in the spring of 1350. The city was a shell, universities closed, markets abandoned, corpses burned in great pyres outside the walls. France had lost so many priests that they asked monks from distant lands to bury the dead. That became my work. For months I helped dig trenches, lower bodies, throw lime, cover the pits. Sometimes we buried 100 people a day, sometimes 200, sometimes so many that we stopped counting. I blessed every grave, but I stopped asking why God allowed it. Some questions have no answers. In the summer of that same year, I met a physician from Bologna. A learned man, educated, traveled. He told me something I had not heard before. This plague, he said, did not come from God. It came from ships, from rats, from fleas too small to see. I laughed. Fleas cannot kill half the world. He shook his head. Not by themselves. They carry something deadly. A poison of the blood. A poison of the blood. The idea was absurd, impossible, and yet it explained everything. Why the plague followed trade routes, why it appeared in ports before cities, why cats and dogs died too, why some people lived and others perished. It was the first time I considered that the pestilence was not divine punishment, not wrath, not sin. Just biology, a world we did not understand, a world we were never prepared for. By the end of 1351, the death began to fade, slowly, unevenly. Cities reopened, markets returned, children played in the streets again. But the world was quieter, half empty, like a great feast hall after the guests have left. When I returned to Florence in 1352, the city was unrecognizable. Grass grew in the streets. Houses stood empty. Shops boarded shut. Of the 37 monks in my monastery, only 2 survived. Neither remembered me. I walked through the cloister where I had once copied manuscripts. Dust covered everything. Ink pots dry, quills broken. Silence where there had once been prayer. I found my old cell. The wooden cross my mother gave me was still under the bed. I held it for a long time. And finally, for the first time in years, I wept. Not for myself, for everyone else. The world eventually recovered. New people arrived, new families formed, new generations grew up, never knowing what the death had taken from us. But I knew. I still know. I know that faith is fragile, that life is fragile, that the world can change in a heartbeat. I know that sometimes survival is not victory. Sometimes it is guilt, a weight you carry for the rest of your days. They say the Black Death killed 50 million people. I don't know if that number is true. I only know the names of the ones I buried. Brother Matteo, Brother Luca, Brother Anselm, my abbot, the family of 5 who came to our infirmary on the first night, the child in the forest, the villagers in the hills, the thousands in Paris, all of them, gone. But I remember them. I write their names. I speak their stories, because that is all a survivor can do. We carry the dead. We honor them. We tell the truth of what happened, so that when the next pestilence comes, and it will come, the world does not make the same mistakes. I was there, and now you were too. If you made it this far, leave in the comments. What would you have done during the Black Death? And if you want to hear more stories from people who were there in history's darkest moments, subscribe to I Was There